What are gradients? Gradient is the slope or the steepness at a certain point on a sketch. So how do you find the gradient or the slope when you're provided 2 points? Let's find out. Let's go! So how do you find a gradient for when a sketch is actually provided in the question? So we can see from this sketch that the y-intercept is actually provided. And to find gradients, you can only use points that are 100% valid to the sketch. So we know that the gradient, which the symbol is actually m, is actually rise over run. So what is actually rise? So you can see from this sketch, if I actually were to create a triangle, you're actually rising from 1 to 5. So how we're actually going to find the rise is that you're actually going to get the 5 minus the 1. So 5 is actually the y2 value. So let's just treat this one as the x2, the x value of the second point, and the y value of the second point is actually 5, minus y1. So y1 is actually the y value of the first point. And obviously 0 is x1. So the rise you can see is actually 4 because it rose from 1 to 5. So that's why the rise, how do you actually find the rise for any linear equation? You get the y2 minus the y1. And similar approach for the run as well. So we have actually ran from 0 to 3. So that is 0 to 3. So how do you actually find the run? Well, the run is, in this case, it's actually 3 minus 0. So 3 is the x2 value, the second x value from the second point, minus x1, which is the x value of the first point. So to find the run for all linear equations, it's actually x2 minus your x1. So if we were to sub all these values into the equation, it'll be 5 minus 1 over 3 minus 0. So you actually get here 4 over 3. So let's apply everything we have just learned to another example. So you can see from this sketch that the y-intercept is provided again. And don't forget, we don't have to be provided the y-intercept to find gradients. It can be any 2 points. But of course, there are situations where you can find the gradient through using 1 point or potentially no points, which we'll discuss in the next lesson. So how do you find the gradient in this case? Well, the formula will never change. The gradient, which is the m value, is rise over run. And what's the rise, everyone? Well, it's y2 minus your y1. And what's your run? It's your horizontal difference, which is x2 minus your x1. Okay? So this example illustrates that regardless if certain values are negative or not, the rule never ever changes. So you just have to decide which point do you want to be your first point. So let's just take 0, 0 as your x1, and that means the 0 has to be your y1. So that will make x2 equal to 5. y2 will then be negative 5. So let's follow the formula. So you grab your negative 5. It doesn't matter that it is negative. And you subtract 0, which is your y1 in this case. How about your x2? Well, your x2 is 5. And you minus your x1, which is 0. So what is negative 5 minus 0? Well, it's negative 5. And 5 minus 0 is 5. And your gradient is negative 1. And you can see that this graph is starting high and ending low. So therefore, it is negative and the answer is definitely reasonable. So let's do one more example. So in this case, it will involve more negative values. So how do you find the gradient if there's more than one negative value? Well, the formula never ever changes. So what's the gradient formula again? Gradient is rise over run. So how do you find the rise? That's correct. It is y2 minus y1. And what's the run? It is x2 minus x1. So then you just have to decide who is going to be your first coordinate point. So for me, I always choose the point that I see on the left side as your first point. So x1 will be -2 in this case, and y1 will be 1. And what's going to be the x2 value? Well, it's going to be 1, and your y2 value is -2. So if we sub these values into the equation, it's going to be -2. It doesn't matter that is negative. Y2 is -2. Minus, subtract, y1. So the y1 value is 1. What's the x2 value? Well, in this case, it is 1 minus, don't forget this subtraction is part of the formula, minus x1. What is x1? It's -2. So there's going to be 2 negative values involved in this question. So how do you solve this? It's going to be -2 minus 1. 2 friends lost minus 1 friend lost is -3. What's 1 minus minus? Well, negative is plus. So you can see it's going to be -3 divided by 3, and therefore the gradient is -1. There you go, guys. You have just mastered the gradient of another sketch. Hope you have now built confidence in finding out the gradient when 2 points are provided in the question. Just remember, you can still be cool and be good at school. See you guys in the next video. Peace out.